How you doing, YouTube? Matt with Massive Beer Reviews. Back to yet another review. A little bit of who knows action in the form of Barrel of Monks Brewing's Grand Cru 2017. Barrel of Monks. Never had anything from them. Heard of them. Never had anything. This will be my first foray. This bottle of beer comes courtesy of Ralph. Thank you very much, Ralph. He sent me a bunch of Florida beers, and this is one of them. Been actually chomping at the bit to dive into this for a while. But, week went by, didn't get into it. Had a bunch of dental surgery done. A couple weeks went by. We're drinking this. Super excited. So, let's dive in. As far as what it says in the bottle, it says Barrel of Monks Brewing, Grand Cru 2017. Barrel Monks Brewing is proud to present the 2007 release of our Grand Cru. In the craft beer world, Grand Cru denotes a very special beer. Grand also means large in French, and this beer is big, full of rich toasty and caramel malt flavors with just enough hops to balance the sweetness. This beer should age well. So it's 2017, don't know when it was bottled. This beer is bottle conditioned and will have a small layer of yeast sediment in the bottom. Pour carefully in a stemmed glass. We recommend you leave the yeast sediment in the bottom. Yeah, whatever. Product to USA, Boca Raton, Florida, and that'd be that. Yeah, label-wise, it's cool. Very kind of old school style, almost like French champagne style kind of outline on there, but I dig it. I dig it. The oddness that I see in that whole kind of bottle thing is they talk about hops. Talk about a Grand Cru. When I think of Grand Cru, I think of a lot of the great Belgians and Grand Cru from whether it be Hendenker, the Guten Carlus Grand Cru, or what I mean. Even in the States, you're talking about Schlafly's Grand Cru. You're talking about Belgian darks typically. Just brute force this off here. Come on. I'm gonna close my eyes like I'm gonna hurt myself. There we go. I thought there was gonna be a cork in there actually. You rarely see the whole hop thing kind of referenced in these kind of. I'm assuming this is Belgian based. You're talking about Barrel of Monks. You're talking about a Grand Cru, the shape of the bottle, the whole nine, and you talk about hops. It's just an odd thing for me, to be honest with you. Talk about hops. So. We'll see what happens. Now, Grand Crus typically, they can range. It's not like it's exclusive. It's not a style. Typically, Grand Crus are the breweries, what they denote as their best beer of that year. That's traditionally what a Grand Cru means. But more times than not, since it kind of is born from the Belgian world, you're typically getting some kind of Belgian strong dark or quad or something along those lines. We'll see if this one kind of falls in line with that. As far as what we have so far, infinite creaminess, pretty uniform bubbles. Seems like these weird striations of like big bubbles coming down the side. I don't know if it's like that on your side, but it's like that on my side. Kind of like malted malt balm colored head, pretty vibrant carbonation, yeah, she's pretty clear. Again, we're going in with assumptions here. I'm kind of assuming it's a Belgian kind of forward kind of beer. A little bit clearer than what I typically like my Belgian darks to come out. It's color-wise, it's right around double in color. I will never say Duvel, so don't yell at me about that, internet. And unless I moved there and I lived there for several years, and I'm allowed to call that. Anyway, tangent. But yeah, it's got soft, rich browns to it, a little bit of mahogany going on. So it has that double color, but it doesn't have that kind of murky, kind of doo-doo water kind of thing that I love so much. But yeah, first off, just by looking at it, looks like a kind of double-ish kind of beer. I'm trying to see if there's an ABV on here. Ooh, 11%. So it says Belgian inspired ale. I didn't see it over here. It's kind of hard to read. It's kind of written the same color as the background. But Belgian inspired ale. So there we go. That's probably them just leaning on the whole, we shouldn't say Belgian beer because we're not from Belgium, so it's kind of like saying style. Anyway, let's get a nose on her. I'm getting like a greeny, and by green I mean like non-overly ripened, not like an actual greenness, like a fresh, unripened like what you'd expect, kind of date figgy thing, but it's more like, it's not, doesn't have that richness to it. It's like that coated in brown sugar. To me, that usually denotes kind of greenness, and I keep saying green. I should probably use another kind of adjective. It denotes kind of freshness or newness, as opposed to having a bit of time on it. A lot of those flavors, if you get those initially from a newer beer, will end up kind of melding and becoming something a bit more kind of sugar daddy, kind of rich, kind of roundedness. But here it smells, not taste, and taste it yet. It smells a bit kind of fresh out of the chute. There's like a funky tea vibe to it too. And by funky tea vibe, I mean if you ever like steeped like just a regular like your black and orange orange pico kind of black tea blend, your typical like Lipton tea, red rose tea. If you actually steep that hot tea and then you let it kind of cool, and that's the kind of smell I'm getting off it. So I'm getting like a herbaliness, but those tend to have that kind of tannic funkiness to it. So that's what I'm getting here, and get a little bit of tannic funkiness. I assume that's coming from the yeast. I'm getting that kind of brown sugar with that kind of new unripened kind of date figgy thing. I assume that's your kind of Belgian candied sugar, whatever their version of that is with the malt. And that's that. So yeah, sweet, herbal, spicy. It smells like a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Non-robust, I don't know. It doesn't smell old. And Belgian beers, to me, always have this kind of oldness to them. Even if they're newer, they just have this oldness as far as the brewery's been doing it a long time kind of thing. And this has this kind of, like, okay, this is a newer brewery doing Belgian stuff. But it's all about that taste, so let's dive in. Cheers. Sweet. Sweet. Definitely sweet. That tea bag thing combined with that brown sugar thing, that's your 1-2 punch here. That's what you're getting. You're getting this big sweet kind of brown sugar thing going on. It's your Belgian candy sugar, whatever they used. And then you're getting that tea bag, that herbally spicy kind of non-hot kind of old school tea vibe from it. The date and figgy thing, not so much in the mouth, that is in the nose there. It's kind of lingering in the back, but it's very small. It's got a nice mouthfeel to it, especially for its look. Usually when they're this kind of has this kind of clarity to it, ends up coming a bit thinner. But the mouthfeel is pretty nice. It just tastes, to me, like a kind of a newer attempt at an American brewery doing a Belgian, probably like a quad. That's kind of what they're going for here. It's not a double, it's a quad. They're trying to hit that kind of Belgian note in there, but they're missing the mark as far as the old school G's kind of get it. You know, your Chimay, your kind of, West Riedelen, your kind of Koningshoven, La Trappes, those of the world kind of get that. I mean, they've been doing it hundreds of years, so it kind of makes sense. But out of the chute, they get this kind of density to it, this kind of haze. Like everybody freaks out over this haze in these New England style IPAs. It's much the same thing with Belgian doubles and quads. A lot of the American breweries can't nail that kind of body, that kind of, like I say jokingly, kind of doo-doo water thing going on, where it has that super haze that all these American breweries covet in these IPAs, but they just fail to kind of land, or I don't know if they're worrying about it or whatnot, but they failed to hit that mark with a lot of these kind of their attempts at Belgian beers. And that brings a lot to the table. It ends up doing the same thing a lot of these hazy IPAs do, which just kind of add more flavor and kind of props everything up, and just ends up being a bit more kind of rounded and kind of beefy and robust. And when you're thin like this, it ends up coming off a little bit too sweet and a little bit too singular. And that's kind of what we have going on here. This might age into that, and that's the kind of the difference as opposed to a lot of those New England style IPAs. Is that age is really not going to do it any favors. When you start talking about beers like this, if you let this sit for, being that it's only bottle conditioned, there's no barrel aging or any of that going on. You let it sit for 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever years, it could end up becoming that. It can kind of get that kind of robustness, and it where it sits now, it's just a little bit too new for me, and a little bit too, for lack of a better word, basic. It misses that mark that I covet in a lot of these kind of darker beers. I'm going to refer to this as a quad because that's what I assume they're going for. And I want that kind of dense murkiness to it. I want a little bit more kind of the yeast to play a little bit more of a part in the beer itself. I mean, I'm getting that kind of tannic tea bag thing out of there, but I'm getting none of that kind of rich dark red fruits, your plums. Like, sure, a little deep figginess, but they're very kind of new green off the tree kind of thing. I want a little bit more play from that yeast. That's what Belgian beers do. The yeast plays the role here. The Belgian candied sugar comes off more like brown sugar than it does Belgian candied sugar. I don't know if they're doing that. A lot of breweries do that instead of the Belgian candied sugar. So again, but it's not a bad beer, and it sounds like I'm pooping on it from beginning to end. It's nice. It's tasty. I like it. But it lacks any kind of like calling card for me to kind of go gaga over it. And I want to go gaga over new breweries and relatively new breweries in the States making Belgian beers, because it's not what people do. It's hard to cut your teeth doing that in the States. So when I come across these breweries, I really want them to nail it. So it's not a matter of me just kind of nitpicking to the nth degree. Breweries like this, I just want them to do more. I want them to be more robust. I want them to be kind of the people that really nail those Belgian styles in the States, whether it be Omegang or Schlafly or what was the one out in the West Coast, was a Block 15, I think it might have been. There's some that really kind of hit that nail in the head when it comes to your Belgians. Cane Brewing, stuff like that. That's where I want them to be. And are they there? They could be. I mean, this is one taste out of how many beers they probably brewed. If they haven't been there, will they get there? Most likely, if they love it, they'll eventually get there. But for me, this is definitely a tasty beer, a nice beer, something I wouldn't push away, but at the same time, I believe what they're trying to go for is a kind of traditional Belgian quad or Belgian strong dark cuvée, kind of like Grand Cru style beer, and it just kind of comes off a little bit thin, a little bit too kind of clear and filtered, and a little bit too kind of singular as opposed to being this big kind of round, cohesive kind of just delicious Belgian bomb of awesomeness. So there you go. Well, let me cut to the chase. It's one of the better Belgian beers I've had as of late, Belgian style, or otherwise, no, not bad by any means, but I've had quite a few, so definitely on the outside looking in. Value and availability, no idea. Maybe Ralph can chime in and just say if you like what way you like this. This comes off a lot like some of the Belgians that Avery makes. This comes off like a bit more of that kind of Americanized version of the Belgian beer. So if you like that, or if you want to support breweries that are doing Belgian beers, or Belgian style, don't rip me, internet, for not saying Belgian style if I've missed to say it throughout this review. If you want to support those breweries, because they need to be supported, the haze thing, the IPA thing is fantastic. I love those beers, but it's great to see breweries doing beers like this. So if you want to see those beers done and done well in the States, you have to pay your dues, which means you buy beers like this that are, again, like I said, very tasty, but you support them now, and they reap rewards in the end. So if you want these beers to be around in the States by breweries local to us, you gotta buy them. You gotta do it. You gotta drink them, you gotta talk about them, you gotta enjoy them, and just, show your support. At least that's what I think. So there you go. Another review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, anywhere in between words and stuff. I'm throwing up fingers like I'm talking about myself on Facebook and Instagram. You can do that. Massive beers, all four of those places. And there you go. Another review down. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a nice American-born Belgian-style beer right now. Hope to see you next time. Cheers.